Hello, welcome to Microsoft Community in Class podcast, where we share insights from community experts to stay up to date in Microsoft. I'm Nicholas, will be host today. In this episode, we dive into the amazing cost optimization. Before we get started, I want to remind you to follow us on social media so you never miss an episode, and it help us reach more amazing people like yourself. Today, we have a special guest in this episode called Erlend Rushfeldt. Could you please introduce yourself, please?
Thanks for having me, Nicholas. Yeah, my
Mm.
name is Erlend Rushfeldt. So, you
Sorry,
did
I
got
pronounced it
pretty.
wrong.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I think you did pretty well. You did. But yeah, I work as a consultant manager at Innofactor, which is a Nordic company, consultant company. And yeah, I've been working there for almost 2 years now. Started as a senior consultant, and then now in 2025, I've started as a consultant manager. I have a small team at the cloud infrastructure team there. We're like 7 people there, but we're in the cloud infra. We're pretty big. So Innofactor is Nordic consultancy, as I said, and we specialize in Microsoft technology. So a lot of Azure, a lot of Microsoft 365, a lot of security, and yeah.
Okay, so before we dive into the theme of this episode, can we just run through like what you do at day to day in your job?
Yeah,
Uh,
certainly. So normal day for me, I have a customer in Oslo where I live, and I work as a consultant towards those or that customer. And at the same time, I also have like a team that I take care of. They report to me, and yeah, on a day to day, it's usually working with the customer, having stand-ups with both internally with my cloud infrastructure colleagues and also with the customer. I work a lot with infrastructure as code. I work a lot with cost optimization. It's becoming a big field in a lot of customers right now. And in Norway, we're seeing a lot of demand for especially cost optimization. And yeah, you see it, or it has become quite big in like not only how do we do it in a good way, but also like more and more services are brought in by Microsoft, and pricing can get so complicated. So a lot of the time is just sitting down and looking through the documentation of Microsoft of how are we actually paying for this kind of things.
yeah, because I remember having a conversation, like backstage, and it said you tend to focus now on cost optimization. So, what inspired you to focus on that area in the cloud?
Yeah, so it was actually in a previous employee I had. I was also working as a consultant, and I didn't have much like projects at the time. So
Yeah.
I was starting to think like, how can I start to make my own work? How can I create a offering for our customers that will create work for me? So for me, it was like either I can go in and check out security, but we had a ton of security people already, so wouldn't be that big. And then the next part was cost optimization. We had very high demand for cost optimization from our customers, and it started kind of small. Like, okay, we have this one storage count that we're having, and it's costing us several thousands per month. How can we like optimize this specific resource? And then it just came so much more like, okay, so here's how we optimize storage, here's how we optimize compute, VMs, how do we optimize app services? And the ball just kept on rolling and rolling. And then I created a service offering, which was basically just a PowerShell script that
Yeah.
like went through the entire Azure environment, and like uh, all these experiences that I've like learned, like how do I optimize these things. The script was running through environments, just checking all these things, and then exporting to an Excel, which I just went through manually and created a report for the customer, and it worked perfectly. Super simple, but at that time, at least in Norway, cost optimization wasn't that known. It was like, how can we do this? Like, we have gone to the cloud. They said it was going to be cheaper. We're now seeing like these huge bills coming in every month, like help. And it really worked out good. And to this day, it's still like really giving, like working with cost optimization, because so many customers value it. Of course, they value money, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Good.
like again and again, it comes up that they need help with it.
One of the questions that I want to ask you is how, in your experience in your role, what are some of the common mistakes that you find when managing costs for like Azure itself, Microsoft?
Yeah. So like the number one that I find is like firstly over provisioned compute resources. Like people will set up VMs if they migrated them from on-prem, like oh, 1-to-1 from what we have on-prem with CPU cores and RAM, and they don't like continuously check it. Like, are we actually utilizing this, or is it just standing there running? Same goes for app services. People are running far too big app services than they're actually needing. They're not utilizing like the benefit of cloud that you can scale up and down when you need it. They have just set up like static resources, like here's the SKU we're using, we're just going to use it. The second most like common I've found is how I'm going to call it, like orphaned resources or zombie resources. It's resources that have been set up once and then maybe forgotten. Like if you were doing Azure before 2022, I think it was, like if you had a VM and you deleted the VM, it wouldn't automatically delete the disks and the network interface card and the public IP. And those were just lie there for years. Basically, like you have resources that you're not using, and we can tell because it's not connected to a resource that it's dependent on. A public IP that is not connected to a network card or to a VM, it's not really used.
Yeah.
Like there are some exceptions, but you have like costs laying there.
Yeah, that's like wasting money. So
yeah,
wasting
it's basically
unutilized cash.
you're giving Microsoft money for something that you have forgotten. You had resources that you no longer need, and it's just lying there. And another thing, like when you're a consultant, and you might do one project with a customer, and then you leave, and then you come back again for another project in like 1 or 2 years, then I have experienced it myself. Like I found resources that I have set up, and I know like this was not supposed to lie around. We were done with this like test resource or whatever it was. And it's like, it's been 2 years since that, and it's still lying there having a cost every single month. And VMs running when, I hadn't been logged into this customer for 2 years. And that's like, that was a strange thing. Like when I started creating the service offering for cost optimization, is that okay, we can go to our customers, but we have like created their Azure environment. We came there as the consultants doing the job, and now we're coming 2 years later and telling them like, oh, yeah, we did something wrong. Here's an optimized way, and you have to like go and control yourself. And it was quite strange in the beginning, like going out and either saying like, your colleague or my colleague as consultant, he came here and what he set up wasn't optimized for cost optimization. And we had like find somewhere where we were humble enough, and it created some internal frictions, if I can say. Like you come to a customer and they have like this consultant who has been there for several years, and you knowing he's your colleague, he's a good guy, and then you have to go and tell this customer like, oh, here's something that my colleague has forgotten to delete, and it's costing you several thousands in the last few years. It's not easy.
Yeah, because I think that in that case you would just have a process, whether it's a shutdown process every night, in case people forget to delete it. It would just go through everything, delete.
Yeah.
In that case, so in a way, I think a cost optimization would fit perfectly with governance, as in Azure policies, because you can tighten the guardrail of what people can deploy SKU-wise or app service or VM.
Yeah, one way that I like to think about cost optimization is that we can learn a lot from security, because security is a field in IT that has been going on for way longer than we have been in the cloud. And if you like look at some of the 5 things that security does really good, like first you start out by mapping your environment. Like start simple, like what am I actually spending here? What are my resources? Which resources are costing me the most? And then see if you find anything that's not in use anymore. And then when you have mapped everything out, you can go over to monitoring your costs. Check like you're monitoring for compute. Can you scale down something? Can you use auto scaling instead? Can you use the different SKU for burstable, for example, for VMs? Do you utilize your storage? And most importantly, set budgets for your Azure subscription. It's so easy to set up a budget and you get notifications if you're actually like going over how much you want to spend. And some people who don't set up might get a nasty surprise, and Microsoft might not give you a refund if you ask for it. And then after you've gone through monitoring, you start by a very important thing in FinOps Foundation and the FinOps principles is that you need to make people responsible for the costs. Like in a previous company that I worked with, there was a saying like, we're all working with security, because everyone needs to be responsible for every day, like everything they do in their job, they need to make sure that it's actually secure. And if you do that for cost as well, like make everyone aware, like we're all responsible for Azure cost. Either if it is choosing the right SKU when we're deploying something new, or going back and checking, can we optimize this? So that's really important. And another point that we can learn from security is like limitations, like you talked about with Azure policies. Setting policy like you would in security, like an example from security could be like we want to block a with policy that no one can actually go into an NSG and open up RDP or SSH like directly from the internet and in on a public IP. We don't want that. Or we don't use conditional access to limit where users can log on. You can take that same way into cost optimization by using, for example, Azure policy and say like, well, here's the few SKUs or a chosen amount of SKUs that you can actually use for your environment. Here's some specific resources that you can use, and you can automate this, like saying, you're not allowed to, but you can send in a service request and we can create a exemption for you. But of course, you're going to be responsible. Or you can use Azure policy to enforce tags. Say that you need to have a cost center tag, for example, so that we know which cost center we're going to charge back the cost for that resource. And those are really good. And the last point that we can learn from security is like, to create a culture. If you create a culture where everyone is aware of cost, you have educational programs for your employees, like here's how cost works, empower them to actually both do their designs right to have good costs, and also like give them the tools to optimize. And when you empower those, you create a good cost optimization culture. But then again, you need to have it anchored into like the management to get it like from up and down. Often it is from IT going, okay, we need to optimize. And when you go to the developer team, they're like, no, but we need to have this virtual machine running 24/7, or we can't scale down this one because we need X amount of gigs of RAM, even though the monitor might say otherwise. So it's hard, but if you create a good culture for it, it gets a lot simpler to actually get those cost optimizations.
Yeah, so lots of time when you're doing like POC with the clients, like the top clients you're in charge with, you can just run something and you can tell them a rough estimate of what it would save a year. And then before they approve the process that you can do, and then you just test it against any dev environment. So another thing that got my mind is that what are some of the challenges do you think everyone would have when dealing with costs, whether it's managing third party like separate FinOps person in the client side, or just like everyone learning know about costs? So what are some of the challenges you think?
Yeah, it's definitely knowledge. It is like people see just a huge bill coming in and it all seems so big. And of course, it is big. You can have thousands of different resources and its resource group and subscriptions. And you're sitting there just seeing like the top 5 services. And it just seems so large to actually go in and look at it. But if you start breaking it down into like smaller pieces, it gets simpler to actually get into it. But I agree, it can be very, very intimidating to look at just your bill from Azure and look like, how am I gonna like optimize this? Azure cost management tool, it's getting really good right now. Microsoft, they are making some great improvements, and it's getting easier and easier to actually dive down into your cost.
Yeah, because I noticed, like, for example, AKS, Kubernetes, they have cost analysis in it built in, so you can actually see from each of the namespace as well. So instead of drilling in the cost management portal, so I think Microsoft is drilling more into costs and as well for each of the resources. It's easy to identify.
Yeah, it is like Microsoft. They're part of the FinOps Foundation. So the FinOps Foundation is a part of, or it is a open source like the Linux Foundation, where they want to create frameworks and trainings for everyone. So it's cloud native, and Microsoft go in there for Azure, of course, and they listen to, well, FinOps experts and how they're doing. They're looking at the framework that they're creating, and then they're going like, okay, how can we implement it easier into our platform, Azure, to actually help people optimize and get control of their costs. And the last few years, Microsoft has done lots of improvements, and it's going real well. Like, for example, Copilot for Azure. If you have that, you can ask that questions about your costs. It has varied results, but sometimes it gives you really good.
Yeah. So do you normally, when you do a piece of work with a client, do you normally just consider cost in any of your, like, for example, any of your work you've done? So have it in a peace of mind, like if it's going to cost you that much, what you could save. And...
Yeah. I mean, mostly like with my current client, I always have like discussions with our tech lead, which is like, okay, we're doing an APIM instance now in test environment. Which SKU should we use? And then we look both at, okay, what are our requirements? What services do we need? What features do we need? And then we look back at the SKU, trying to get it as like low as possible and cheap as possible SKU. And Microsoft really, I would say that they want you to think like that. If you look at the AZ 305, which is the Azure certification for architect infrastructure solutions, a lot of the questions are like, here's a scenario, and here's like the technical requirements. Which SKU should you choose, which will give you the lowest cost? And I also saw that in the AZ 700, the network engineer. So Microsoft are putting these into their certification and the exams, because they want you to think like that. You need to not over provision and choose the premium SKU. Sometimes you need that because Microsoft also puts the best security into the premium SKU. So if you need, for example, private endpoints and VNet injection or integration, you need to choose the premium SKUs. And they're getting better at it. More and more services are getting those features in the cheaper SKUs, and I love it. So thank you, Microsoft. The last one now was that I saw, API management again, standard V2, that has VNet integration and private endpoint now. So I'll definitely look into that, because that's like half the cost of the premium SKU. So
wow. A
Very
lot of
good.
cost saving. Yep. So as this episode is coming to an end, if you were to give one piece of advice to like customers and partners that work with Microsoft about cost management, what would you say, give?
Don't be afraid to actually dive into the costs and start small, look at the Azure pricing, and then just try to figure out how it actually works and use Azure cost management.
Okay. How can some other people learn more about cost management, Azure cost management? They
Yeah.
want to learn more?
Yeah. So if you want to go at the big picture, FinOps.org, which is the FinOps Foundation, they have good frameworks and a lot of free documentation and educational text that you can read. You can also do certifications through them, the FinOps Foundation, and it is possible there to join the foundation and talk with other people that are doing this. Other than that, Microsoft documentation, all services has a pricing pool, and a lot of services also have a cost optimization documentation. That's because Microsoft has the well-architected framework, and one of the pillars in the well-architected framework is cost optimization. Yeah. So a lot of documentation on different services will have something about how you can optimize the costs.
Okay, brilliant. So we love to learn about our guests. So how have you going to any further events? Are you going to any events talking about costs or various community
Yeah.
events?
Yeah, actually, I'm going to the European AI and Cloud Summit in May in Germany. And I'm
Okay.
also going to talk about cost optimization there. So, yeah.
Okay. So you're trying to influence costs in everyone's life and trying to get people started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's what I love doing about my job. It's my favorite subject in
Okay,
Azure,
brilliant.
at least.
So aside from your day job as a consultant, what do you like to do? Do you have any hobbies?
Oh yeah. I go to a lot of concerts, metal
Music concert?
concerts.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, metal.
Okay.
Love metal, and I also do a lot of volunteer work. So in the community and at festivals also. So yeah, and
Do you mean
other than
like
that,
do you like mentoring stuff, or is it just like
uh I do mentoring inside my own
yeah,
company at
yeah,
least,
okay, yeah, that's good.
but I haven't really gotten the opportunity to do mentoring externally, but maybe someday.
Yeah, you can even mentor anyone really. It doesn't need to be. It could be anyone in your company, but you do it externally, as in your own time when you both of them
Yeah.
are available. That's it. Okay. So thanks for joining this episode, Erlend. Hope I said it pronounced it correctly. Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you, and hope everyone learned some bit about cost optimization from you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.